December the 4th. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We didn't do a live stream last week, did we, RJ?
No, we took that day off because I don't think anybody was going to be on.
I hope everybody's getting their butts back in gear because I know I am. It wasn't the easiest thing. I probably was eating 5,000 calories a day over the break that we had. I was smashing. At one point, I ate, it was over the course of about 10 hours, but I ate an entire pumpkin pie, right? An entire one.
Nice.
It was a moderate size. It was just
Yeah.
a little one that you pick up from the bakery at a local grocery store, but I ate the whole thing. And I didn't intend to, but once I started, after you eat like half, you're like, well, I might as well eat the whole damn thing at this point. So we are grateful to be back in the studio today. We are ramping up. We are still kicking ass. We are closing deals. And we have a very special guest in a very, very much needed conversation. And a lot of real estate investors, including us, for many, many years, guess what we're good at, everybody? We're good at buying houses. We're good at selling houses. We're good at raising money. When it comes to the numbers, we just want to run under a freaking rock and hide. And it's like this fear-based kind of weird vibe. So we need to bring in professionals to help us with the stuff that is going to keep us from generating revenue. RJ, how's the vibe, man?
The vibe is alive. So the reason why David is here is because we want him to talk to our community and just have the tough conversation that no one likes to talk about, which is how much of this profit do the owners keep? How much are we putting into our pockets? How much can we pay ourselves first? This is what our method is of buying rental properties, is the PYF method. It's always about profit. All of our coaches talk about, what is your bottom line? Did you look at your P&L? Great, awesome. You are saying you made $50K on a flip, but what was your bottom line on the flip? Because it's not $50,000.
I know.
You're not factoring in the cost of operating your business, the cost of capital. Like, let's get down to the nitty gritty. What do you bring? And then you're not even factoring what you got to pay to your other silent partner, which is Uncle Sam is your silent partner. So really that 50K at the end of the day might be closer to 20,000 if you don't have the right things in place to not have to pay so much to that silent partner. But David is here because he's got a really amazing company called Simple CFO. He wrote the book Profit First for Real Estate Investors. And I've read the book, and some of those investors in that book we have relationships with. We know very well. And some of the lessons that the investors in that book actually shared are some of the lessons that we've actually learned also. So we're not immune to this. We are, we're happy to have him on because I think this is hitting at the right time of the year, because right now you should be looking at and having conversations with your tax guy and planning ahead for the coming year. And so welcome to the live stream. Welcome to our show here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Let me just keep it real for a second. For years, everybody, RJ and I started buying and selling houses over 10 years ago. We didn't even know how to read a HUD settlement statement. We used to show up to these closings. The only line that we knew how to read was, what's the assignment fee? Or how much are we, either paying, or, do we need to bring to the table? Or we didn't understand the numbers. We didn't care. We were all about moving on and negotiating the next deal. We have, over the years, and up until recently, we've matured. I mean, we have matured through mistakes, massive tax bills, owing contractors, everything you could, owing lenders, negotiating with lenders, because we weren't paying attention to the real bottom line. And it's easy on a Facebook post or an Instagram post. It's like, oh, look at this. I got $100,000 check. Everybody's excited about that. Well, what they're not telling you is how much of that is a reimbursement of the money that you put out. It's not all profit and it all looks good and all this nonsense. So RJ and I have matured through mistakes. And what we're looking to do is bring David on to help us be proactive here. RJ and I ran our businesses out of a shoebox. And then we eventually evolved to a spreadsheet, right? When it comes to expenses and stuff like that. And we made millions of dollars of mistakes. You don't have to. if you just work with solid people who know what they're doing right off the bat. But here's the thing. And then we'll turn it over to you, David. A lot of people like the idea of having a professional handle professional work. They like the idea of having a numbers guy deal with the numbers, but they're like, look, things are tight as they are. I can't afford to hire somebody on salary, right? How am I going to bring somebody on board? My overhead's going to go through the roof. I know I need this, but it's like a catch-22. It's like, I know I need it, but I can't really afford it. So you're filling a massive need. David Richter is filling a massive need in the marketplace for investors just like us, where he will basically fractionally or virtually handle the numbers aspect of a real estate business without you having to take on a massive salary, right? So it's very much needed. We're very excited to have David here. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes. First off, David Richter, he wrote Profit First for Real Estate Investors. Now, there's a book out there, Profit First. What's the guy's name again? David, you answer. What,
yeah,
Mike Michalowicz?
Mike Michalowicz.
Mike Michalowicz wrote Profit First. That's for general business. That's for overall business, and it's a good book. RJ loves the book. RJ's got a copy of the book on his desk in preparation for today, right? But then David said, look, why don't we apply some of these principles to real estate investors, mom and pop real estate investors like us? How do we apply this? And then you wrote the book, and then you started working with a lot of real estate companies, and you work with people all over the nation. Is this correct, David?
Yep, that's correct.
So what is the number one thing when you first get hired to come into a real estate investor's business and start looking? What's the first thing that's just glaring that's like, okay, you guys need me?
There's three things that we're looking for. Do they even have books, numbers, a process to get numbers into a profit and loss, P&L, the balance sheet, that type of stuff? And if they don't, that's a big indicator, because that's where it's like, you got to have numbers. If you don't have numbers, you don't know your story. The second thing is, how are they handling cash? So that's where I'm looking. Have you read Profit First? Have you not? Do you have some type of management system for the cash and the dollars flowing through your bank account? Because what you just hit on, Dave, is so true, that like, just because you got $100,000 check doesn't mean it's $100,000 in profit. So like, when that check hits, do you know what to do with it and where to put the money back, and like how to grow the business and make sure that you're actually fueling it with the right dollars? So that's another big thing. And then if both of those are usually big strikes, like, okay, if you don't have this in place, we're probably a good fit together. And if they're actually making money, like, obviously they have to be making money, they have to be doing the deals as well too. But those are the two big things we're looking for. Like, do you have numbers at all? Like, I've gotten on so many calls where I'm just like, can you just give me revenue last month and net profit? No, like, it's not done yet. Or I'm like, how about the beginning of this year? No, I don't have anything there. Or, this is my best guess. Or I'm writing down on a spreadsheet, so I have like a roundabout. And it's like, those are usually big indicators that, okay, we need to get an actual system in place so you don't keep bleeding dollars.
Hey, as much as I would like to say, like, oh my gosh, these people don't even know their numbers. Everybody, RJ and I lived this way for years. You could have asked us, what was your revenue? And it's like, there were so many moving parts going on, right? And to simplify, I'm telling you, what did Steve Jobs say? The hardest thing or the most genius thing is to simplify anything,
Yep.
right? And when there's a million moving parts, and I'll tell you where the moving parts really get sticky, and RJ can comment on this, is the rehab money. So RJ, what have you seen when it comes to cash management for rehab?
Well, with construction is a moving target, because you can't really control unforeseen things. Like, you try to control everything, and you can have the right paperwork, and you can have the right trusted contractors, and still shit's gonna happen. Somebody can come in and steal tools and materials and break things, or a storm can come by out of the blue and tear off the roof, and now you have an additional 6 to 7, 8K. What do you do, right? Like, you can be involved in the rehab, live in the house, and do all the things, and still something is going to happen. It is a moving target. And so if you don't have any, even if you had a buffer of 10 for 15%, stuff happens. Something happens. We're talking about, like, people in business. People are people. They're going to mess up. And so now you're taking some rehab money, you're from this project and you're putting into another project, and then it
100%.
starts to
That
bleed
happens.
in, and then you're
100%.
like, okay, and then okay, shit, now we got to like, how do we make this work now?
Yeah, this is what no one wants to
So
tell you. Everybody thinks they have it all
so
figured out. They don't.
but so then it's like, all right, well, shit, that 20K spread or 30K spread is in reality is only 7,500. Then we did this all for 7,500, and that's not really a true 7,500, because then you got to look at what that tax bill is going to be for that 7,500. So really, it's probably close to half of that. So, anyways, this is just some of the things that happen. It is part of the business. You're going to take some losses in the business, and a lot of it stems from overpaying on rehab or getting screwed when you have a new sub and you pay a deposit you shouldn't have. This is just the game that we're in, and even all of the protecting paperwork and this and that stuff can still happen. Just letting you know.
I got a question for you, David. So when you enter a real estate business, how do you compartmentalize like the flipping, fix and flips to wholesale to like a buy and hold portfolio? Like your brilliant CFO mind, where do you go when you're working with somebody who's got a little bit of different things going on?
If they've got a lot going on, first of all, I'm asking them what is their big money maker? Like that's what we usually need to focus on first. What's driving
Absolutely.
revenue and what's bringing the most in the door? So if that's flips, if that's wholesales, or if they've got a big portfolio and they're just living off the cash flow at that point, because we work with all different types of real estate investors. So that's the first thing to try and compartmentalize. That's usually where we start systemizing things first is what needs to be, because you're already making the most money in this area. So let's make sure we get the best systems in place so that way you actually keep more from that revenue driver.
Yes. Yeah. What is the first engine? RJ and I had this conversation this morning because we know a lot of people who are kind of going through shit. We
Yeah.
ain't gonna lie, brother. I just talked to a guy for 40 minutes today, and I mean, there's people, real estate investors who were like gung ho, rocking and rolling for through the years of like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. A lot has changed since then, and the
Mm-hmm.
major changes that we're seeing is anyone with floating adjustable rate mortgages, rates have increased massively. Insurance costs have increased massively. Property taxes have increased massively. So there's a lot of commercial real estate investors who are feeling the burn right now. We know this for a fact because we know limited partners. We know investors in these syndications who are just getting killed right now. The disbursements have dried up. This is only the beginning, right? And it's sad, but a lot of people just don't have their stuff together, right?
Yeah.
So what are you seeing some simple actions that, let's just talk about a day-to-day wholesaler, a mom and
Yeah.
pop wholesaler who also is kind of building some like buy and holds for themselves. Do you suggest separate entities and separate sets of books for a flipping business and a buy and hold business?
Yes, I'm not a CPA, so let me just get that out there, and I'm not like your entity
Oh
structure
no, this
person,
is
but
going on the
just
record, bro.
right
Everything
forever.
you say is law. You're
I,
giving financial advice on this podcast. Just kidding, everybody. We don't
There-
give financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. Are you not entertained? Go for it.
So then, well, looking at the business like a business owner, that's what we have to get the owner thinking about first is what's going to give you the most clarity. And to me, the most clarity in being able to manage is separating those out. And there's so many benefits of separating those out, whether it's on the books or the entity structure. But you have someone slip and fall on one of your rental properties, one of the
Right.
first few rentals, and then you've got that tied in with your wholesale business. Well, they can come in and look at everything that you've got going on. So it's like we need to be able to separate that out so there's not as much liability as well either. But then the other big part of it is the day-to-day management, like knowing, okay, what am I making in the wholesale company and what's the bottom line and what's my cash position in the wholesale versus, okay, the passive play is I'm building a portfolio and I want to drive equity, but then am I having to feed my rentals like from my wholesale company or vice versa? Or
Mhm.
am I having to rob from Peter to pay Paul over from my rentals into the the wholesale company because I can't really sustain all the expenses over there. And so it makes it very clear that if an entity or if a certain exit strategy is not holding its own weight, and if you're having to pour money into something, especially the bigger you get, because they should, as the bigger they get, should stand on their own. But a lot of people just say, well, this is just all my stuff going on. And then it's like they're just sucking money from one into the other, and they're not really making anything at the end of the day.
Do you know anything about that, RJ?
Absolutely, absolutely. You got the money pit side of the business not making you that much money, and the other side is completely profitable. Yeah, absolutely. We know a lot about that. What would you say if you're starting out building a rental portfolio, right? And you obviously one of the biggest costs is turns when somebody moves out. Tenant moves, they're going to move out, right? I mean, it's very much a unicorn tenant that stays for 30 years, right?
Right. Yep.
So, what do you suggest investors
Great question.
keep in rental reserves in the account so that they can fix the property when it gets vacant?
So in the book, I actually put a little chart depending on the size of your company and your rental portfolio, like what percentage of all your revenue should go into basically capex or turnover bucket. And I don't think it goes, I think it might start off at like 5%, but it like increases the bigger that you get. Because obviously, the more properties you have, the more I would want to have there to be able to handle things. I think one of the big things though for people is just setting up a specific account for turnover or that type of thing. So that way, when it
Yeah.
does come up, you have the money there. I would say you look at that in your portfolio. I would want at least a third of the portfolio covered of like the major expenses. Could we do an HVAC? Could we do a roof? Could we do this? Like, what are some of those things and how big is the portfolio? And like, that's where getting to that place. But at the beginning, like I said, the smaller you are, you're not going to be able to pour as much money into it. But actually starting the habit, that's the big thing, is starting the habit wherever you are now of putting money away for things that, like you said, RJ, this is not oh my gosh, I didn't know a tenant was going to leave, out of my, these houses. It's like, we know that's going to happen. So it's like planning for that from wherever you are now with your portfolio size. And in the book, there is that chart that gives the percentages based on how big that business is and how much revenue you're driving into the passive side.
So rent comes in. Let's see, revenue comes in from a rental.
Yeah.
And in your book, you have a framework of where that money should go, right?
Yep.
So it goes into talk about that. So
Yeah.
rent comes in, and
That's
then
what Profit First is all about. That's why I love that versus some of those other books. Like, I love Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, and all the books that tell you pay yourself first. Profit First took it a step further, and here's a system. Here's how you can make it in the day to day, and that hits you at your bank account level, what you're looking at every day, all day long, no matter what. So
right.
then you actually set up different bank accounts, and that's what Profit First is about, being intentional with every dollar, like
Yeah.
knowing where those dollars are going. And on the rental side, I would still have there's core fundamental accounts that Mike talks about in his book, what you were talking about before, Dave, that apply to any business. Like, it doesn't matter if you're real estate or if you're a restaurant. It's like, these are the first 5 accounts you should have, and the first 3 are for the owner. It's called profit, owner's compensation, and owner's tax. Like, those are 3 accounts that help you keep more of the money you're making, but they all serve a different purpose. I could go into the purpose later on. But then for the other 2, it's income and OPEX, or the expenses. So income and expenses, so you can see what's coming in and what you're spending. So those are like the foundational accounts of Profit First. But honestly, for a rental company, if they do have that, like what you asked before, Dave, like, hey, what's their main revenue driver? And like, what do you do? For a rental company, we're then saying, do you have tenant deposit account? Like, do you have a CapEx, turnover account? We do have, like in there, making sure that they do have some sort of reserve account for just making sure if any business, whatever, comes up, that you're able to cover it. So those are some of the ones that we help on the rental side specifically, because we want them to make sure that they have the money for the things that are going to pop up. And like, those fundamental accounts could apply to any type of business, but then there are specific accounts for rentals that we're looking at first to make sure that they're covering themselves, covering their butts. And also another big one that I would say is a fundamental, I would tie this into, if you have a real estate investing company, no matter what the exit strategy is, there's a 6th fundamental account to throw out there. It's called OPM, other people's money. So you could see how much money you have for rehabs or for the repairs or for your rental versus those other accounts to run the business. Like you've got money to run the rehabs and the projects and like getting the repairs done, but then you've also got the money that's yours in order to run the day to day of the business. So I would have the OPM account as well too.
Let me just tell you something real quick, everybody. Very few people are doing this. Very, very few. And I'm talking big players as well. And I'm talking funds, fund managers. And do you know it's against the law to like use certain monies if you're like a fund registered with the SEC and you're using it willy-nilly with this money and stuff like that? It is so sloppy and it's actually illegal,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
people aren't doing this stuff. They need to be paying attention. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So you work with all different size businesses and whatnot, right? I mean,
Yep.
you've seen it all.
I've seen it
Do
all.
you have a rule of thumb when it comes to somebody who's working a W-2, real estate's their side hustle?
Yeah.
Maybe they're accumulating some rentals and kind of using that W-2 income to qualify for some rental properties. Do you have a rule of thumb of like when someone should leave a W-2 career to pursue the real estate game full time?
I would say I have more of an opinion where if you set up, this is why I love Profit First, because I can talk in system language. If you set up Profit First, even from your first rental, and you're like, well, I don't need to take the profit. I'm W-2 and this is just my side hustle. Still set it up. Like I said before, it's the habits you're creating. You're creating good money habits by setting up those accounts. And from every single piece of revenue you get in, you're separating them out into the buckets. So that way you have different bank accounts, name different things. One of those accounts that I named before, Dave, was the owner's compensation account. Literally an account for the owner to start storing money to pay themselves like an actual salary. Like you can now start paying yourself as a business owner. And that's where I tell people if they're doing that, the W-2 game, because literally a couple days ago, a lady came in the door. She said, hey, I have a W-2 job, but I also have some storage facilities and I have a triplex and some rentals. And she wants to quit her W-2 job. And I told her the same thing that I'm telling you guys and everyone else listening. I said, we're going to set up that owner's comp account. And what I'd really like to see is really 3 to 6 months of your pay from your W-2 stored into that owner's comp account by itself. So that way you could like have a little golden parachute almost like for yourself where you're like, hey, I've got 6 months where even if nothing happened, if I didn't buy another rental, if income didn't go up, if a tenant left, I could still pay myself for at least 6 months here by this one account that's dedicated to pay me. So it gives them a little bit more of a buffer. Now, I also read the person, like, are they more risk oriented or are they more like safety oriented as well too? Because all types of people walk through our door. And so I say 3 to 6 months at the least. If you're more on the saving side, you probably more want 6 to 12 months. And especially I also ask them about their job too. Like what benefits are you getting? Because it might be more than 6 months that you want in there if it's more than just the financial, benefit from the company that you're getting as well too. So that's my rule of thumb or my opinion. Like if I'm telling someone like wait to quit your job until we have this saved up in this one account, not saying you need even 6 months of worth of business reserves for the whole business, but making sure you could pay yourself for that length of time.
I have another question, but I want to send it over to RJ. RJ, what do you got?
So what are the we talk about the different accounts that I wrote down. So you need to have an owner's compensation account because you want to start paying yourself a salary. So there's no question about like, when am I going to get paid? How am I going to get paid? And you're not robbing from an account to pay yourself, right?
Right.
How do you see like somebody that's just starting out and they're ready to start paying themselves? How does one make that amount? Like, how does one calculate the amount that they're going to be paying themselves? Because that's always the thing that I ask when I'm around these circles.
Yeah.
I'm always asking, the only thing that we should be talking about really is that when it comes to like money in the business, oh, I made this. How much did you take home? Like, how much did you take home to feed your family and to have your lifestyle? That's the most important question. Not, oh, you did 10 million and blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody cares about that.
Exactly.
Nobody should care about that.
Exactly.
You should care about what you're bringing home, because if you're only bringing home a certain amount and you did all of that work, you're actually stealing from your family's time.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's not cool, in my opinion. So how does one, if you're going to start paying yourself, how does one calculate that salary based on what's going on in business revenue?
Oh, I have a different opinion where it's not even based on business revenue. Like I say at the beginning, you should say, this is what I need to take from the business. I call it your key
Mhm.
number, what I need and want. One day, I want to grow into a want number. Like, why did I even start this dang business? Which might be like, hey, I wanted to give, or I wanted to go on these trips, or I wanted to buy something really cool. It's like whatever that big wish that you want in your life. How do I make that reality? And I want to get there. But the first number that we go over with people is like, what do you need? What do you need to make sure you are feeding your family? So I start there. And it's like, can the business support it? And what is that percentage of the revenue right now? If it can't, like what your example, RJ, of like, hey, they just started out, they're just buying rentals right now. You're not going to be able to pay yourself what you need, even what you need just from a few rentals right out of the gate. So it's like what we're going to have to do is at least have that number, that goal that we're going after, but then it makes it more realistic of how many rental doors do I need to get to my need number, or how many
Yeah.
wholesales in a month do I need to do versus like, let's just do 1,000 deals this year. It's more like,
Right.
oh no, I only need to do 2 deals this month to make sure I'm paid what I need. Or I need to do, I had one of the very first clients we worked with was $70,000 in the hole when we met him because he had a rental company and fix and flip, and his fix and flip was eating him alive, and his rentals was covering the losses. And then we started working together, and he implemented profit first. And like I saw that transformation because even before like last year, crazy things happened in his business and he was able to give lots of money. But like the very first year being on the system, he came to me and said, David, I was trying to do like 3 to 4 deals a month the year before because I just wanted to grow and scale. And I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But like this year, he said, I figured out because of what I needed, like from the business, I only need to do 5 flips. And I'm like, what is that?
Wow.
5 flips a month or 5 flips like for half? He's like, no, for the whole year. Like I
Yeah.
only need to do 5 flips. And it blew his mind. He's like, what am I doing 80, 90, 100-hour weeks? Why did I get my wife involved in the business? Because like all this activity flying around and everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like 5 deals and I could get what I need. So that's
Yeah.
where I would say, RJ, it's more about what do I need? Now, on the flip side, like, let me put my tax hat on here for a second. I would
Mhm.
also consult with your tax person how you should take the money out of the business, whether it is an actual salary, like from Gusto or paychecks or like a payroll company that pays you from your business, or is it distributions? Because depending on your tax, and how your entity is structured, that's how the legal way of like taking the money out, they're going to help you with that. But on my end, I'm all about the cash management. How much do you really need to take out? And then we'll figure out the nitty gritty of how you actually take it. But you'll at least have an account dedicated to paying yourself so you can know, do I need to do 5 deals this year? Or am I just going to go out there killing myself for 45 deals, but then I end up losing $70,000?
I'm going to say a couple
Huge.
names, and then you tell me if you know these names.
Yeah.
Gino Wickman,
Yes.
Vern Harnish.
Yes.
Okay. Vern Harnish wrote the book Scaling Up.
Yep.
Gino Wickman wrote EOS, Traction,
Traction.
right? Phenomenal books. Both of those are phenomenal books. I believe, though, just from the circles that I've ran in, the circles that RJ's ran in, we've met at a mastermind. You and I met at a mastermind. Yeah. We've been part of these groups. I believe that these books have been amazing for people, but they've also completely got people obsessed with scaling up, that just like the example you gave. It's like, I want to do 100 deals this year. How many do you need? You only need to do 5 and you're profitable, right?
Yep.
So I think a lot of people over the years that I've noticed, and maybe you can comment, have just got distracted with like scaling for the sake of scaling, and it's just kind of like adding moving parts to your life. And here's the deal, everybody. A lot of these masterminds that we're all a part of and we met David at and whatnot, that's really the primary focus. It's very transactional, and it's very much like scaling up. RJ and I do have a private circle. We have like a private mastermind. We kind of take the different approach. We take the approach like we're talking about here, like how do we maximize profit and basically keep it small, keep it all, be profitable,
Good.
and do what we need to do to be successful. Did you notice that trend as well over the last 5 years of like scaling for the sake of scaling and whatnot? Tell us your experience there.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is definitely a soapbox, so get ready. So, over the last 5 years, for sure. I also think it's our Western culture. Honestly, it's just more. We can't ever get enough. We don't know what enough is, and we don't know that word. We just want more and more and more. And I think getting around a group of A type entrepreneurs, male, female, it doesn't matter. It's like we're all in there just trying to hustle, grind, go to the next level, all that stuff. It's like all the lingo that's used in the entrepreneur world. And that's where I've seen that so many times. That's exactly where I met this guy, was at a mastermind event.
Of
He was in
course.
a group of 40 people and was telling me one-on-one on the Zoom call. He was like, that's just the culture. I thought I needed to scale up. And like, that was just part of, what people were telling me. And I should be doing this stuff. And there was a book that I read that put this in such a great perspective called Crucial Conversations. Chapter 10. I
a
love
good
chapter
one.
10. It's called Retaking Your Pen. And they talk about in there that everyone, when you're born with your pen in your hand. That's your self-worth. And as you get older, when you're a little kid, you don't care what anyone thinks. You're dancing like nobody cares. You get a little bit older though, and then it starts to be like, hey, what do they think? What do they wear? How do I fit in?
Exactly.
And honestly, we never really lose that if we've never had someone take us through that process to be like, you hold your pen. You should be writing your story and
Love
not
this.
someone
Yeah.
else. So when you get older, it's like high school, college, and then you become an entrepreneur. When you become an entrepreneur, you take back your pen. That's a big
Bro.
part of like getting away from the sheep and the crowd and just being like, hey, I don't want to be W2 anymore, or I don't want to have to depend on it. I might still have it, but have a bunch of rentals too. But I'm making my own way through this and not relying on someone else. That's really a big part. You're taking back your pen, you're writing your own story. But then we get trapped as
Yes.
entrepreneurs comparing each other to the other entrepreneurs,
Yes.
where we're like, oh my gosh. And then now they're holding our pen and saying, you should be doing 5 deals a month, and you should be scaling up. And then that's where someone like that guy goes into $70,000 in the hole versus the next year. He did 5 deals the next year and made $200,000 net. Like, it was crazy just because he
Yeah.
had way less team, way less anxiety, way less
Love
of the
it.
marketing that wasn't working for him. And it was like, this is what he ended up making. I'm like, this is why he took back his pen and he was able to say, I'm going to do the deals that matter for me, my family. Because I tell people all the time, what makes your business different than every other real estate investor out there? It's you. It's your situation. It's your family. It's the partnership. It's the whatever that you have structured. And we just lose sight of that. We lose sight of that because we go to these events. I was on a call with one of my best friends in the entrepreneur space, and he's like, I haven't been in a part of a mastermind in like a year. And he's like, you know what? I don't feel the pressure anymore, like to scale and stuff. And he's a part of a small group like yours. Like, so he's like, I love that environment where it's about small and keep it all. So that's why I love what you guys are doing. Like, just keep
100%.
pointing people in this direction, because it's like, this is where true financial freedom lies. Where a lot of people stay stuck in that Robert Kiyosaki game, the cash flow 101, in that little rat race. They've traded their W-2 paycheck to paycheck living for deal to deal living on those little green spaces that say big or small deal. And they never get to the fun track, like the actual fun side of real estate, because they're not listening to what you're telling them of like, stay small, keep it all, and like what works for you and your family. And like you had said, RJ, too, like, what are you paying yourself? I think that's all I care about. Like, I don't care about any of the deal size, the amount of revenue, but like, are you being taken care of? Because if not, then why do you have $10 million if you're spending 11? I'll be okay. You want to see soapbox here? I was in the real estate world going to the same masterminds before I started Simple CFO. And there was a company I was a part of where we scaled up to 25 deals a month. Wholesale, flipping, turnkeys, rentals, lease options,
We do it
everything under
all.
the
Yeah.
sun. But we were spending 26 worth of deals out the door. So you
There
would
you
have
go.
asked us like, oh, what are you guys paying yourself? It's like, absolute dog crap. Like, it's not great over here. Like, this is not fun. So that's where I'm just like, so much. Don't just do deals for the sake of doing deals, or because you want
Straight
to look
up.
cool in front of everyone else, because that
Correct.
leads you to the empty pocket. And like, where did all that money go? The number one thing I hear when I'm out there and I start speaking about this stuff, it's like, I hear I'm making money, but I feel broke.
Amen.
Where did my money go? Like, where did my money go? So there you go. Soapbox done.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. If you guys are watching this on the channel, make sure you rewind and start at, because that was like a 5 to 7 minute rant.
Loved it.
5 to 7 minute rant, and make sure you are taking notes, because this is what is going to make you successful and actually have financial freedom.
Straight
If
up.
anything out of this live stream today, it's that piece right there. And then go read
Amen.
his book. This book is Profit First for Real Estate Investors. And it's, if you're a real estate investor, or if you're wanting, aspiring to be a real estate investor, read this book. And I'm telling you, this is the book here. Let me make sure that I can share my screen here, because I want to make sure you get right here.
There it is.
You guys can see that? There it is. All right. Get it on Audible. Get it on, like paperback. This is it right here. Profit First for Real Estate Investing. And there's true examples, just like the guy with the 70K eating, away his life and turning it around. There's more examples in this book. And then actionable things like the setting up the bank accounts, which is so important. And it's just
What is
being
the
a good
link
steward
that
of
you
money.
got? What is that link again, David? I'm going to put it on my screen.
Oh, sure.
www.
simplecfo.com/CP. So this is for your group specifically. I actually give like the audio and ebook if you want that at that link. And it's also a profit first cheat sheet. Because let's be honest, didn't you open up, Dave, with saying like everyone hates the financial side, like even talking about it? So I'm like, here's a 1-page thing where if you had any interest in keeping more money and keeping it as simple as possible, go to that link, simplecfo.com/CP, and it will get you to like, hey, here's where a download is for you to be able to start implementing Profit First. It's 1 page. There is a second page, and it's a visual. It's a visual on the page, so that way you can be like, how do I move money through my Profit First system? So I just want to make sure no one's getting this info out there. So there you go. There's how you can get that stuff.
Can I speak freely for a minute, RJ? Do you mind?
No. Come on, Dave. That's what you're all about.
There is
Let's go.
so much. Listen, everybody. Let me just keep it real. There is so much bullshit in this world. And it's like we get caught up. What I got from what David just said is like we trade one rat race for another. But it's like this ego, it's this insecurity. It's like I gotta fucking fit in, I gotta be part of this. But listen, doing more does not always equate to having more, right? Doing more does not always equate to why you started this business, why you got into real estate is for that fun lane of the cash flow game. It's for that freedom. It's for that freedom. I'm all about, and I know RJ's all about, and you're all about now after this conversation. It's like, what's the fastest path to the fun lane? What's the fastest path to the freedom lane? And it's only going to happen, everybody, with knowing your numbers. This shouldn't be something we fear. And I'm guilty as charged. There's been this internal, it's conditioning and programming, right? It's this fear. I'm afraid of the process. I'm afraid to look at it. That is not a way to go. RJ tells me this too. He's like Alex Hormozy, phenomenal, content creator, mentor, business guy. Right? He talks about, it's like, if you wake up in the morning, the first thing you should be looking at if you're trying to make money is like your bank accounts. It's like, be obsessed with the numbers. The sooner you could understand your numbers, the sooner you are going to be free. It doesn't necessarily mean doing more deals. No, that's not the thing. Let's dig in on our current numbers. But here's the thing, everybody. You don't have to do it alone. Let's get David rolling. Bring in an expert. So it's like, let me help you. Like, you're not all alone on this island in this fear. It's like, bring somebody on. And the thing with a fractional CFO, the reason we like David, the reason he fits in well with our cream community and what we're doing, keep it small, keep it all. Let's focus on profit, building wealth, freedom, family. This is what we're about, right? Because when you bring in a fractional guy like David who knows his stuff, you don't need to hire him. You don't need to sign up for this $100K a year. How much would it be? What is the average salary of a CFO?
Oh, David, man, it's like 200, 250.
200 G's. Yeah. Well, come on now. When we don't stand for that. We're trying to keep our expenses low. Let's pay a la carte, right? Let's bring in an expert. He's going to give you an honest assessment. How many businesses have you looked at in your career?
Well, we work with over 100 right now on a monthly basis, bro. And then I think we've worked with close to 500 now over the years. Like just implementing Profit First and getting this out there, and just trying to get them to know where their money's going, and then keep more in their pocket.
Yeah.
The big win that I got, and I kind of want to shift gears, and we're going to kind of start to wind this thing down. RJ, what's on your mind? You got something else? I see you thinking.
Well, I just wanted to, just keep it real with everybody. That sometimes, you know, what we think, what we see out there is like the gospel is like, you know, social media is a highlight reel, y'all. Like there's no,
Yeah.
there's just some people just need to keep it real. Like we try to keep it real as much as possible by showing, you know, statements, and then also backing the statements up with receipts, and then also having guests on like David to teach us. Like we're learning stuff even today as well.
I'm sitting here
And
writing
so
notes, bro.
I,
Yeah.
I want you guys to um, really understand why this is important, because the number one thing that we're all here for is we want to make more profit. This is what it's all about. This show is all about how to keep more profit. But the only way you're going to make more profit is being a good steward of money, because there's a flow and energy of money. And if it, you know, money likes it when you pay attention to it, and it doesn't like it
Mhm.
when you're like not
Great.
taking any responsibility and you're willy-nilly with it, and you're just living like, you know, uh, irresponsibly, spending money, not even knowing, like tracking your money. Like a lot of us are in that same boat. I'm probably speaking to you right now, is you just have a, you know, 10K budget on marketing, and you're not tracking how good that marketing was. Well, when you're
Mm-hmm.
not tracking, guess what? You're definitely not earning, and you think you are, but you're not tracking it. So you just, like, you know, earlier in the show, we were asking, you know, like, hey, do you know your numbers? If you don't know your numbers, you're not going to make as much money as you could make. And if you're not good at that, and you acknowledge that you're not good at that, you got to get some pros in your team that can cover your bases. And this is what David's team is going to help us out with, you know? So look, if you're really good at sales and that's what you want to do, and this managing of the money is not your thing, well, you got to at least take a look at it. You got to at least be, as an owner, you need to understand your money situation. And then if you realize that you don't have the capacity for it, there are companies like Simple CFO that can help you with that. I'm just keeping it real. If you're not going to be able to do it on your team, hire somebody that will. And the moment you do that and make that shift and be a good steward of money, watch your bank account grow. Have you ever noticed that you start looking at your money and you start seeing it grow? It's because you're freaking paying attention,
Yeah,
and
we're
you're starting to
focused
see
on
things go like,
experience.
oh, there's a subscription that I've freaking been paying, you know, $1,200 for the whole year. I'm not even using.
I
Guess
know.
what? Cancel that subscription. You just made $1,200 back to your bank account.
Bro, I'm
Okay.
ready to get off this call and start canceling shit right now. I'm not kidding, bro. I just wrote it down. I'm like, oh, hang on a second. Wall Street Journal, how much value am I really getting from you? I'm
Right.
starting to question everything, because look, it's all about how much do you pay yourself. Here's the number one question we discovered from this conversation. How much are you really making? Not what you show with the check. I got a check. I don't care about that. How many businesses out there? I don't care if you're making 10 million, but they're spending 11. There you go. You know how much of that goes on? And it's
Yeah.
not just with small businesses and real estate investors.
No.
It's on Wall Street too. There's so many
Everywhere.
crony capitalism, right? They're just
Yep.
getting bailed out. It's all bullshit, right? At the end of the day, let's focus on why we started this business to begin with, which is to create freedom for yourself and your family, right? You don't have, and I know for a fact, people listening to this live or people who will be watching the replay, which will be on YouTube and be on all our socials and whatnot. Look, I know you're hearing this because we lived this way for years. We just started tracking, full transparency. We just started tracking things like cost per lead deal. We've been doing this for a business for over 10 years. We really just started to sink our teeth in the last 18 months. Let's keep it real. Right? Like we lived in this rat race for so long. And that's why we're so passionate about like bringing this to you. You don't have to make all the mistakes we've made. Just start working with a professional immediately, right? Bring in someone from the outside, or at least help them let them help you guide this thing. So you're just to get the train on the tracks, and just remember, doing more. You don't necessarily need to do more to make more. But you started this business not to look cool on social media. You started this business to create financial freedom for yourself and your family. And think how proud your wife or husband is going to be when you get this thing on the track. You got steady cash flow. You're creating this for your kids. You have a viable business that you can pass on to your kids. You're accumulating assets for your kids. That's why you started this thing. It's not to look cool and puff your chest out at the next meetup, right? Let's keep it real. So David, what final thoughts do you got for us today?
Sure. Leave you with two. One is, let me give you a super quick framework for you, Dave, if you're going to go and hack and slash stuff. The PR and you that they talk about in Profit First, and I wrote in the book too. Mark every expense for the last 3 months. Is it profitable, replaceable, or unnecessary? That
Hang
will give
on, I'm taking notes. Say this again. What
that
is
will
this?
get
PR.
is that expense, is it profitable? So P, is it replaceable? R, or is it U, unnecessary? So it gives you a framework and system to be able to systematically cut the expenses or pour more money into the ones that are actually doing well for you and that are profitable. So if you're tracking your marketing returns, then you know, like, I should pour some more money into this channel. Or is it unnecessary? Like, no way. Replaceable is more like I could get a better, faster, cheaper, whatever, type thing. So that's one thing that I would say is, and I would do that quarterly. At the least, do it quarterly. So you're going through every 3 months and making sure, am I lean, mean, and here's a system for it. The other thing to leave everyone else, if you're like, good grief, you went really fast, I'm not sure what to do with Profit First, set up one account, call it Profit, and transfer 1%. Get into the habit of being a profitable business owner and keeping more of the money that you make with a simple first step like that.
Well, you,
Amazing.
listen, and we're all going to be watching this one again. This is a very powerful podcast. Is it profitable? Is it replaceable? Is it unnecessary?
Yep.
Yep.
So, everybody, I got David's link here, www.simplecfo.com/CP. Are you online? Do you want to share your handles on the socials?
Oh, here they are. Just kidding. So my handles, just look up David Richter on Facebook, on Instagram. Man, we just changed it like a month ago. I think it's the David Richter on there. It used to be Richter Skill. Yep, the David Richter on Instagram. So if you look me up, that's where I'm at Instagram, and then just look me up on Facebook as David Richter or on LinkedIn. Same thing.
For the
If they,
simplecfo.com, go ahead, RJ.
if people wanted to work with you, what does it look like? Is it a
Yeah.
call with your team and then like
Or it
an
might be a call with
onboarding?
me. I'm taking some of
Oh,
the calls now too, but
awesome.
that's where, yeah, because I love, sometimes I just jump in because I'm like, I love talking with the real
Yeah.
estate investing world. So if they go to that link, the CP one, on the second
Yep.
page after they get the free stuff, there's a calendar link there where you would get a call with
Perfect.
us to see, like, and we're literally saying, is it a good time for you, or do we need to pin you to like a good bookkeeper or a good CPA? Because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you're just getting started, you're just rolling out there, or are you ready for actual financial management and someone that's going to lead the finances for you?
David's
Gotcha.
legit, everybody. Set up a call with him because even if he can't help you, he's going to point you in the right direction. This is somebody who's been around. He's already worked with over 100 companies just like ours and just like yours. So any questions you got, even if you're a small-time player, if you're working a W-2 right now and you're just accumulating some rentals on the side, there's no client too big or small. The guy will hop on a call with you and point you in the right direction if he can't help you yourself. Simplecfo.com/CP for Cream Podcast. And David, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I got a lot of notes. I'm hacking out. I'm bringing out a chainsaw today after this. I'm chopping everything today. We
Good stuff.
appreciate you joining us today. And everybody, RJ, any final words?
No, thanks for all the knowledge and the value and the authenticity that came out today. Appreciate you, David.
Yeah, appreciate you
And I'm
guys having
sure
me on.
we might have to bring you on another call
We
because
might need part
I think
two.
we got rolling here pretty hard. So that was
Yep,
good.
we could definitely do that.
Everybody, David, appreciate you. Everybody, we will see you next Wednesday, same place, same time. Peace.